When becoming a Christian, you must first make a commitment of your mind. Who is Jesus? Is he who he said he was? There is no doubt that Jesus Christ existed. The New Testament is a compilation of 27 historical documents speaking of his life, death, and resurrection. What some people don't understand is that there are a number of non-biblical sources as well. Let me read you a few of those. The Talmud is a collection of Jewish writings from teachers called rabbis, and it says this: Jesus was hung to die on the eve of Passover. Josephus is a Jewish historian who is writing during the time of Jesus, and he says it like this: Jesus was a wise man, and his conduct was good, and many people became his disciples. Pilate condemned him to be crucified and to die. His disciples reported that he appeared to them alive after the third day. The Samaritan writer Thallus says it like this: his crucifixion was accompanied by 3 hours of unexplained darkness. That sounds familiar. It sounds like what the New Testament is talking about. Tacitus, a Roman historian, says this: Christ was put to death by Pontius Pilate. So we have a Roman and Jewish historian, a Samaritan writer, and Jewish teachers called rabbis. There is no doubt that Jesus Christ existed and he walked this earth. Today we are standing in the Garden of Gethsemane as we take a look at the beginning of the cross. This is where Christ and the disciples would have camped out while in Jerusalem for special holidays such as Passover. I can just envision Jesus sitting around a fire with his disciples eating fish and talking about their day. This is also the area where Jesus is taken by the temple authorities upon Judas's betrayal. This all happens right here in the Garden of Gethsemane. Gethsemane means olive press, and in a garden like this, you would expect to see olive trees growing and also the production of olive oil. Olives were taken and then thrown inside of a press, which is a large circular container with a massive round millstone. And that millstone turns and crushes the olives under its weight. The olive oil is released and travels to the lowest point, where it is then dumped into a container. I find it interesting that it is in this very garden that Jesus takes the overwhelming weight of the sin of humanity, past, present, and future. At one point, Jesus says, "If it be possible, take this cup from me." What is in that cup? What is he speaking of? And what is causing him to step back for a moment and consider another way? We are talking about Emmanuel, God with us, the one who says, "Let there be light." He is saying, "Father, if there be another way other than drinking this cup," what is in that cup? I present to you today that the cup he is speaking of is the dregs of humanity, past, present, and future. It is what the author Dane Ortlund calls the mountain of piled up horrors. It's not the crown of thorns. It's not the whipping post or the nails that cause him to flinch. It's the cup. It's the sin that's placed upon him, just like the olive press that goes around and pulverizes the olives. He is crushed under the weight of our sin. Our sin. Isaiah chapter 53 verse 6 says this: "The Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of us all." We see in scripture that Jesus sweat as if it were great drops of blood. He is being crushed under the weight of the sin of humanity. Now I know the weight of my sin, and I know how it almost destroyed me. But we're not talking about just my sin. I'm talking about all of it. This is the beginning of the cross. And Jesus takes upon himself the sin of the world and drags it to Golgotha for judgment. You must make a commitment of your mind to give your heart to Jesus, because he's already taken your guilt, he's taken your punishment upon himself. You must allow him to bear that for you, because you cannot. There is something important about this location. Just on the other side of the Mount of Olives is the ancient desert way of escape. King David finds refuge here when fleeing his son Absalom. When faced with drinking this cup, Christ could have easily taken the way of escape. He can ascend ancient Mount Moriah and the way of suffering, the Via Dolorosa, or he can escape to the desert in 5 minutes. 5 minutes away is freedom, and in the other direction pain and anguish and the wrath of the Father. For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. He did not turn to the ancient desert way of escape, but with humanity on his mind, our great intercessor endured the cross.